Thank you very much, Vice President DiPablo, and I'm very grateful to you and to President Zimmer for your leadership of one of the state's most esteemed universities. And of course, Secretary Dan Brouillette, thank you and welcome. Undersecretary Paul DeBar, it's my privilege to welcome you both back to the state of Illinois. Thank you and keep coming back. Our history of innovation in Illinois is part of who we are. From the invention of the zipper to the development of the magnetic resonance imager, from the birth control pill to the nuclear reactor, from the original TV remote control to the first skyscraper, from the invention of the cell phone to the first graphical web browser, Illinois' world-class institutions have been fertile ground for the exploration that has propelled the world forward. We have an extraordinary technology workforce, 2 national laboratories, more than 100 incubators and accelerators, and world-class research universities with global leadership in business, engineering, and the sciences. Illinois produces 10% of all the computer science grads in the entire nation. Our tech startups produce the highest returns for venture capitalists of any state. Innovation is in the DNA of the state of Illinois. So, Mr. Secretary, Illinois would be delighted to put to work our capability and drive for revolutionary technological change as the Department of Energy's choice to launch development of a national quantum internet.
Who are you, who are so wise in the ways of science?
I know my last couple of videos haven't had much going on in the way of commentary, or at least of the narration variety, so maybe some people like that better. I don't even know. But today I did want to do a little bit of commentary and do what I suppose is another little quantum computing update. And perhaps that's not something that a lot of people find terribly relevant or important at this current moment in time. I don't know. For me at least, it feels like something that, even while I'm hardly trying to even pay attention to it because there's so many other things going on, I'm constantly seeing articles and press releases and things that are touting all sorts of breakthroughs and progress in the realm of quantum computing and the quantum internet. So on one hand, I mean, honestly, I could do nothing else but just follow these kinds of developments and topics and the weird connections behind so many of them. And, I could just devote the whole channel to that and never run out of stuff to talk about. So rather than doing that, which would probably just not be good for anyone, I do think that would be kind of overkill. But I'm not going to do that. There's just too many other things to ramble on about besides quantum physics and quantum mysticism and all that. Quantum computing, AI. But it has been really interesting, especially in the last few months. I was kind of just thinking about, along with so many other things, right, which only a few years ago, talking about things like cell phone tracking and, blockchain and stuff like this. How many things have gone from being just kind of talked about in this hypothetical promotional sense, and then just a handful of years later are materializing and becoming part of the quote-unquote new normal. 5G. I think when I made Ethereal, which was a few years ago now, I guess, 5G was being talked about in government press releases and in corporate promotional things. But, here we are where the 5G towers are going up everywhere you turn. And so when it comes to the whole quantum computing thing, there's a lot of, on the one hand, I think it's progressing pretty quickly according to a lot of their claims. And how much of that is just hype and, trying to kind of BS breakthroughs in order to, get investors or just whatever. How much is it where they're really building things that are going to be used on a commercial scale? And that's kind of what this latest thing that happened in July, this press conference involving the University of Chicago. You got the governor of Illinois there and people from the Department of Energy, and it's this big partnership, and they're announcing this blueprint, basically. This blueprint for a quantum internet that I was first actually kind of put together a few months prior, I think in February in New York. So yeah, while all this COVID stuff and George Floyd stuff and all these other narratives at home and abroad are going on, meanwhile in the background, the quantum internet, the quantum computing thing just keeps trucking forward and still has plenty of funding. And that's basically what this is about, this blueprint, this announcement with all the partnerships with University of Chicago and Fermilab and Argonne Lab, so there's all these different, it's kind of like the CERN of the United States. Not exactly, but yeah, before the Large Hadron Collider was built in Switzerland, the one here in Illinois was the biggest particle collider, accelerator, whatever you want to call it. Right, so I kind of got a kick out of that opening little clip there with him talking to the whole, it looks like something out of a dystopian future movie. Oh my goodness. The crowd all 6 feet apart and talking about innovation. But yeah, that innovation has been all this like government, public-private partnership kind of stuff that's gone on basically since the Manhattan Project is when I believe the Argonne Labs basically was born out of things that started in the Manhattan Project or shortly thereafter. So it's been all this nuclear research and of course that morphs into the quantum. The atomic research bleeds into the subatomic and all that. So here I was just going to read, I probably won't read the whole thing, but part of this press release from Argonne National Laboratory from July 23rd, titled U.S. Department of Energy Unveils Blueprint for the Quantum Internet at, quote, Launch to the Future Quantum Internet Event. In a press conference today at the University of Chicago, the U.S. Department of Energy unveiled a report that lays out a blueprint strategy for the development of a national quantum internet, bringing the United States to the forefront of the global quantum race and ushering in a new era of communications. This report provides a pathway to ensure the development of the National Quantum Initiative Act, which was signed into law by President Trump in December 2018. And so, yes, right from this article, you've got a link to the report that they're referring to with the blueprint, and also the National Quantum Initiative Act, which basically allocated a bunch of money to spend on building quantum things, quantum tech, quantum internet. So that's what this, and the blueprint is basically just kind of identifying, it's very kind of big picture roadmap, identifying like what are all the major sort of engineering challenges and kind of bringing it down in terms of like, how are we going to start scaling this? So this is what's interesting, right? Because it's like, all right, it's still research and development stage, but it's not just supposedly, not purely in the abstract theoretical sense like it was for so many years. And that's what I mean. It's like even in the past 5 years where quantum computing and the idea of making qubits bizarre, because these theories based on quantum physics have been so bizarre and just kind of sat on the shelf for decades, ever since the beginning of the 20th century. And then you had Feynman and John Bell and certain guys come in and sort of resurrect different things. And Feynman has a lot of interesting quotes about being involved in that early stage, kind of talking about it in terms of like we have these concepts, these mathematical concepts that were just weird, abstract mathematical equations on chalkboards dealing with photons and electrons and subatomic particles that had no real application. And it's like magically we have this amazing potential application via quantum computing. I have read some things that kind of compare it to what if it's just like cold fusion. It's this promise of this amazing technology that's just out of our reach, but in reality it's just a boondoggle to eat up grant money and research, but it's never going to actually materialize. And it is interesting to think about it like that, because obviously anything has that opportunism and that kind of dynamic going on, but The weirdest thing about this is that having spent ridiculous amounts of time trying to wrap my head around these theoretical concepts of things like superposition and entanglement, which are sort of the two main quantum phenomena, right? They're different and they're kind of being applied in different ways, even though sometimes the same. So the quantum internet that they're talking about, with the types of experiments they're doing, and basically they've built a little, what they call a quantum, like a loop, where they're using entangled photons or entangled, particles, energons, entangled particles that aren't actually particles, and except for when they are. Anyways, I mean, and at the end of the day, whether you're talking about the experiments and the hardware that they're building for achieving entangled particles, or basically everything they do involves just they're shooting a laser through a crystal and mirroring it, and then there's a detector, somewhere. So lasers and crystals. But it's hard to deny the fact that, okay, we're at least at the stage of where the Department of Energy is now investing massive amounts of money into these projects, and that's basically why Illinois got picked. But they're not the only hub of this research going on. So, okay, back to the article, because I got totally sidetracked. Oh, yeah. All right, I read the first paragraph. Around the world, consensus is building that a system to communicate using quantum mechanics represents one of the most important technological frontiers of the 21st century. Scientists now believe, that the construction of a prototype will be within reach over the next decade. In February of this year, DoE national laboratories, universities, and industry met in New York City to develop the blueprint strategy of a national quantum internet, which I mentioned earlier, laying out the essential research to be accomplished, describing the engineering and design barriers, and setting near-term goals. The Department of Energy is proud to play an instrumental role in the development of the National Quantum Internet, says U.S. Secretary of Energy Dan Brullier. By constructing this new and emerging technology, the United States continues with its commitment to maintain and expand our quantum capabilities. DOE's 17 national laboratories will serve as the backbone of the coming quantum internet, which will rely on the laws of quantum mechanics to control and transmit information more securely than ever before. Currently in its initial stages of development, the quantum internet could become a secure communications network and have a profound impact on areas critical to science, industry, and national security. Crucial steps towards building such an internet are already underway in the Chicago region, which has become one of the leading global hubs for quantum research. In February of this year, scientists from DOE's Argonne National Laboratory in Lamont, Illinois, and the University of Chicago entangled photons across a 52-mile, quote, quantum loop in the Chicago suburbs, successfully establishing one of the longest land-based quantum networks in the nation. That network will soon be connected to the Department of Energy's Fermilab in Batavia, Illinois, establishing a 3-node, 80-mile test bed. The combined intellectual and technological leadership of the University of Chicago, Argonne, and Fermilab has given Chicago a central role in the global competition to develop quantum information technology, said Robert J. Zimmer, president of the University of Chicago. This work entails defining and building entirely new fields of study, and with them new frontiers and technological applications that can improve the quality of life for many around the world and support the long-term competitiveness of our city, state, and nation. Oh, that sounds great. Argonne, Fermilab, and the University of Chicago have a long history of working together to accelerate technology that drives U.S. prosperity and security, said Argonne Director Paul Kearns. We continue that tradition by tackling the challenges of establishing a national quantum internet, expanding our collaboration to tap into the vast power of American scientists and engineers around the country. Decades from now, when we look back to the beginnings of the quantum internet, we'll be able to say that the original nexus points were here in Chicago at Fermilab, Argonne, and the University of Chicago, said Nigel Lockyer, director of Fermilab. As part of an existing scientific ecosystem, the DOE national laboratories are in the best position to facilitate this integration. One of the hallmarks of quantum transmissions is that they are exceedingly difficult to eavesdrop on as information passes between locations. Scientists plan to use that trade to make virtually unhackable networks. Early adopters could include industries such as banking and health services, with applications for national security and aircraft communications. Eventually, the use of quantum networking technology in mobile phones could have broad impacts on the lives of individuals around the world. Scientists are also exploring how the quantum internet could expedite the exchange of vast amounts of data. If the components can be combined and scaled, society may be at the cusp of a breakthrough in data communication, according to the report. Finally, creating networks of ultra-sensitive quantum sensors could allow engineers to better monitor and predict earthquakes, a long-time and elusive goal, or to search for underground deposits of oil, gas, or minerals. Such sensors could also have applications in healthcare and imaging. Creating a full-fledged prototype of a quantum internet will require intense coordination among U.S. federal agencies, including Department of Energy, the National Science Foundation, the Department of Defense, the National Institute for Standards and Technology, the National Security Agency, and NASA. All your favorites, along with national laboratories, academic institutions, and industry. Even better. The report lays out crucial research objectives, including building and then integrating quantum networking devices, perpetuating and routing quantum information, and correcting errors. Then, to put the nationwide network into place, there are 4 key milestones. Verify secure quantum protocols over existing fiber networks, send entangled information across campuses or cities, expand the networks between cities, and finally expand between states using quantum, quote, repeaters to amplify signals. And yeah, they actually have some little breakdowns of that in the blueprint thing. Little diagrams. Quote, the foundation of quantum networks rests on our ability to precisely synthesize and manipulate matter at the atomic scale, including the control of single photons, said David Oshalom, Liu Family Professor of Molecular Engineering at the University of Chicago's Pritzker School of Molecular Engineering, Senior Scientist at Argonne National Laboratory and Director of the Chicago Quantum Exchange. Quote, our national laboratories house world-class facilities to image materials with subatomic resolution and state-of-the-art supercomputers to model their behavior. So indeed, much like how everything at NASA works in space, it's really all computer models. These powerful resources are critical to accelerating progress in quantum information science and engineering and to leading this rapidly evolving field in collaboration with academic and corporate partners. You always got to have those. In addition to our collaboration with the University of Chicago, Fermilab is working with Argonne, Caltech, Northwestern University, and tech startups to develop the architecture and gradually deploy and connect quantum communication nodes across the city of Chicago. Before long, with this second group of collaborators, we'll be teleporting data across a metropolitan network, said Panagiotis Spets... Oh, good grief. What is these names, man? Head of Quantum Program... Does anybody have just Smith, please? Head of Quantum Programs at Fermilab. This blueprint is important for telling us how we build this out nationwide. So yeah, there you go. Other national laboratories are also driving advances in quantum networking and related technologies. For example, Stony Brook University and Brookhaven National Laboratory, working with the Department of Energy Sciences Network, headquartered at Lawrence Berkeley National Laboratory, have established an 80-mile quantum network testbed and are actively expanding it in New York State and at Oak Ridge and Los Alamos National Laboratories. Other research groups are focused on developing a quantum cryptography system with highly secured information. So, okay. Probably way more than anybody even cares to know. But there you go. I'm reading that because it really sort of does feel like we're kind of at that same stage with the Internet 1.0. You know, back at Berkeley, back when the Internet was just first created, whereas connecting university campuses and DARPA and just government labs and things like this, you know, that's how the Internet was born, right? So that's essentially what they're saying they want to do, and it has this whole national defense kind of angle to it. But in the grand scheme of things, obviously, you know, we know that nothing is really about national defense when it's funded for that reason. And so, you know, on the bigger picture, on the globalism scale, you know, how far away they're going to build something. That's kind of the bottom line. And the thing is, even if people don't want to kind of think about that extended out however far to what is the ultimate end game of all this, which obviously is the beast system as a whole, because everything just feeds into that in the end. But even if people don't want to go there or go that far, you know, the whole question of encryption and creating a hack-free internet, which supposedly, obviously, the government would want to build for themselves, and that would be the world government eventually, because that's what the real government is, and it's becoming more all the time. But you have the encryption side with entanglement, entangled particles that aren't particles, but are, right? So entanglement is one thing in terms of, you know, using the spooky action at a distance. That's what that is. But then you have the whole qubit thing and the qubit dilemma, which is kind of a separate thing. And so it's sort of the other half of this report this is just from a couple months ago now. So all is going on in the past 6 months, right? That all these new sort of announcements and developments. This is from the University of South Wales in Australia, and he basically just will tell you what they claim to have achieved. And if you've been following quantum computing and getting down to absolute zero is one of the biggest challenges, right? So they've come up with something that they're calling hot qubits, because they don't actually have to be kept down at almost absolute zero. And supposedly this is a big deal because it can radically increase the number of qubits that you can have in a quantum computer, which has been a major goal, milestone, challenge, whatever you want to call it. So
our team at UNSW has just shown that we can operate silicon qubits at temperatures 15 times hotter than is possible for most other qubits, which need to operate very close to absolute zero. This clears a major roadblock in the development of quantum computers. These computers will eventually be far more powerful than even the largest supercomputers today, and have the potential to solve problems of global significance, including designing new medicines to fight disease and developing new catalysts to reduce energy consumption. However, this will require millions of qubits, whereas the most sophisticated quantum computer in the world today, made using superconductor technology, has fewer than 100 qubits. Furthermore, these superconductor-based quantum chips need to be cooled down to 1/10 of a degree above absolute zero, which is minus 273 degrees Celsius. So you need very large, sophisticated, and expensive coolers called dilution refrigerators to keep them cold. Now, if we could build a gigantic dilution refrigerator to cool the millions of qubits needed, it would require millions of cables to read and write the data, and the whole system would fill a number of rooms and cost countless millions of dollars. This brings back memories of the world's first computer, called ENIAC, back in 1945. Even then, it's not clear that we could keep such a system cold enough for the qubits to operate. This problem has been kept in the closet in the quantum computing world for years. But now our team, in experiments led by Dr. Henry Yang, has shown that silicon qubits can operate at temperatures above 1 Kelvin. That's 15 times hotter than they've previously worked. Now, 1.5 degrees above zero is still pretty cold for us humans, but in the quantum world, it's almost like living on the surface of the sun. This means that we can use much smaller cooling systems, greatly reducing the cost from $1 million or more to just a few thousand.
Not only will the quantum computer be much smaller and cheaper, but at these higher temperatures, the system can cope with thousands of times more heat load than before. And this leads to a second major advantage of operating qubits at higher temperatures. It means we can now operate conventional silicon chips in tandem with the quantum chip. We need these conventional chips sitting next to quantum chips at low temperature to control the read and write operations that constitute the quantum calculations. But conventional chips generate a lot of heat, which is what makes your phone or laptop hot when you use it. Fortunately, above 1 Kelvin, we can suck this heat out efficiently, and our quantum chip can still stay cold.
Unlike superconducting qubits, which can only operate at dilution refrigerator temperatures, we've shown that silicon qubits work just fine at higher temperatures, meaning we can now think about building quantum computers with millions of qubits. We've already designed such a chip based on the same silicon CMOS technology that is used to manufacture conventional computer chips. And when built, this will open the way to solve problems of global significance.
So again, please do take this with a giant grain of salt or a grain of discernment or whatever, because, whether they've really come up with some kind of breakthrough with this that's going to increase the speed at which they can start building quantum computers in the next few years. I mean, I don't know. Who knows? It could just be all hype and just, again, people want grant money, right? So an investment. So that's how you get grant money and investment, is by coming out with quote unquote breakthroughs. And there's literally every single day people are putting out press releases about quantum computing breakthroughs and stuff. And how much of it is probably from 3 years ago and they're just recycling. It's just propaganda by a lot of these companies and universities and things like that. So you can't just take everything at face value. But at the same time, you can't just dismiss it all as a bunch of meaningless fluff either. Because, yeah, there's definitely a lot of investment going now into quantum computing and the quantum internet. More and more in this, all these, public-private partnerships and startups and artificial intelligence research at this point still far surpasses the amount of investment going into quantum computing, from what I've read. But of course, these two things, again, integrate inevitably. You really can't do quantum computing without machine learning. I mean, that's the whole kind of point. And that's why this whole thing with the hot qubits too is, if there's any quote-unquote breakthrough, obviously I don't even believe that the qubit, I don't know what they're doing, right? I don't know how this is going to quote-unquote work, because all I know is it doesn't work according to what they say. And people can think that's just me being an idiot. I mean, I don't, whatever. But again, I have chewed on the weirdness of quantum physics too long to be able to just shrug it off and oh well, it's just too complicated for me to understand because I'm not a scientist. And no, it's all based on really what is a philosophical and really goofy semantic kind of word game. That's what so much of theoretical physics is. But they hide the word game behind numbers. It's just a word game with numbers is what they're doing. Super Masonic and satanic and esoteric and all, whatever you want to call it. And yet, I do believe a quantum internet, quote unquote, is going to be built at some point. It will involve, quantum satellites, quote unquote, and quantum nodes. So, I don't know if it'll ever get to the point where, you'll be holding your cell phone and you're told that it's actually communicating with your internet provider or your service provider via entangled photons inside your phone that are communicating outside of space and time through the quantum realm with the servers at the corporation who, I mean, that seems sort of hard to believe. That they would actually, the way that when you read some of these things, that's kind of how they depict it. Everything will just be quantum, the quantum Wi-Fi, But who knows? But that's what is so crazy about it, because it really comes back full circle to the whole debate over what the heck electricity and the electromagnetic spectrum and what's really going on there is. Obviously, these are real phenomenons, and we have harnessed it and channeled it and created super, super complex little channels and pathways for it to go and compute things for us. We build little machines with light switches, smaller and smaller and smaller, and going quantum. But the whole qubit thing with being 1 and 0 at the same time, and then, that means that you can use it like a bit in a computer. That's either a 1 or a 0. I mean, I'm sure you can do some really cool math tricks with it, using probabilities and wave functions, and I think that's really what it all is. These dazzling math problems that Feynman and these guys played with all their lives, but it doesn't even make any sense. Look at this thumbnail. Look at this little picture they threw in this article. Entanglement illustration. Yeah, that doesn't look occulty or new agey at all. It's just science right there. It's an illustration, obviously. So they made it look symmetrical. But I mean, this would probably be a closer representation of what they say an atom and versus this. This is not actually what they say atoms and electrons look like. This is depicting two entangled, right, with the red and the blue. So they're never actually in an electron, photon, whatever you want to call it. They're never actually in a single location, according to physics. They're always moving around, and you represent this movement in as a shape in terms of a math equation. So basically, it's just math equations. It's just math equations that make weird things that don't. But this is what the universe is made of, basically, according to science. And this is the science that we are harnessing. This very simple diagram right here to build a better world that will improve the lives of countless people. So can't argue with that. I'm sorry. I trail off and then start getting sarcastic because it's just the default. So yeah, overall, every day there's constant breakthroughs being heralded. And most of it, or even all of it, could just be total baloney. I mean, I don't know. But just the fact that millions of dollars are being spent on this, real or not real, is kind of insane when, millions of people don't have jobs and everything else is going on. But we know that certain things will always have funding, even when we're defunding certain things that we need. Maybe doing quantum computing updates is just a nice break from other topics and agendas that I can't think of really any that important going on right now, right? So there we go. I just wanted to pick these two things and ramble about them. Hopefully that was interesting to at least some of you. Overall, it's not like anything's coming online tomorrow. It's hard to say even what exactly is going to materialize at the end through all this rhetoric and talk and research and investments and things. But it's just how it's kind of going on in the background. It's sort of, I think, part of the thing that interests me. And yeah, this picture is kind of hypnotizing, I will say. It's quite a weird little vortex. Oh, it's a toroid. Now that I didn't even notice that. It's like a fractal toroid. Dude. Sometimes people leave comments saying that I'm trying to hypnotize you with my monotone voice, and I apologize for my monotone voice. That probably has more to do with my own anxieties to talking to I don't know how many people I don't know. I don't think I'll ever get used to that or get comfortable with it, because social media is just such a fun place to... social media of any kind, I don't care who you are. It wears on me, I will admit, but it's also, worth it in the end if we can point people to the truth, point people to Jesus. So I know all the time I don't go into depth or probably take the time. My time has been very pressed lately, especially, and sometimes I just don't always have either the time or the energy to put into it. And I put up a few short videos. So thanks for all your support and encouragement with that, and your patience, because I was getting into a good rhythm there, doing about once a week. But I don't really have a format in case anybody hasn't figured that out yet. I've never really kind of settled on how long should or could I make videos, how long or short, how often, what do I talk about, what do I don't, how loud do you make the music, how many layers of footage can you overlay on top of each other for various reasons before you irritate people and they think you're trying to hypnotize them with CIA mind control. I love all these questions, as if I don't have enough things filling my head with weird thoughts about what the heck the quantum internet even is or isn't. So, I love you guys. I appreciate you. If you wanted a long ramble, there you go. Long monotone ramble. Sorry, I try and put inflection. I do. It's hard. I think I'm autistic sometimes. I don't know. Anyways. So thank you for listening. God bless. I love you. Stay flat.
These things have I spoken unto you, that ye should not be offended. They shall put you out of the synagogues. Yea, the time cometh that whosoever killeth you will think that he doeth God service. And these things will they do unto you, because they have not known the Father, nor me. But these things have I told you, that when the time shall come, ye may remember that I told you of them. And these things I said not unto you at the beginning, because I was with you. But now I go my way to him that sent me. And none of you asketh me, Whither goest thou? But because I have said these things unto you, sorrow hath filled your heart. Nevertheless, I tell you the truth. It is expedient for you that I go away. For if I go not away, the Comforter will not come unto you. depart, I will send him unto you. And when he is come, he will reprove the world of sin, and of righteousness, and of judgment. Of sin, because they believe not on me. Of righteousness, because I go to my Father, and ye see me no more. Of judgment, because the prince of this world is judged. I have yet many things to say unto you, but ye cannot bear them now. Howbeit, when he, the Spirit of truth, is come, he will guide you into all truth. For he shall not speak of himself, but whatsoever he shall hear, that shall he speak, and he will show you things to come. He shall glorify me, for he shall receive of mine, and shall show it unto you. All things that the Father hath are mine. Therefore said I, that he shall take of mine, and shall show it unto you. A little while, and ye shall not see me. And again a little while, and ye shall see me, because I go to the Father.
History of innovation in Illinois is part of from the invention of the zipper to the development of magnetic resonance imaging, from the birth control pill to the nuclear reactor, from the original TV remote control to the first skyscraper, from the invention of the cell phone to the first graphical web browser. Illinois' world-class institutions have been fertile ground for the exploration that has propelled the world forward.